Alright, hey guys, it's Hound from Howling Oracle here, and about 5-6 months ago, I asked you guys to send in some tarot questions for some answers in video format, so that's what we're gonna do today. This is gonna be pretty candid here. I had about 5 minutes to take down all the questions, so I didn't actually put like a lot of pre-thought into it, because I admittedly wanted to use the daylight, because my apartment has terrible lighting with like the light fixtures. They're all very orange. So we're gonna try and beat through this, and we'll see how far we get, but hopefully we'll get it all done. So I'm just gonna dive right in. First question is from Anonymous, and they just asked what my favorite deck was. I assume they meant it on my own personal collection. I have 5 decks right now. I have 2 on order. One of them is actually pre-order. So out of the decks that I have right now, my favorite deck, and only by a hair's breadth, comparison to the Wildwood, is going to be the Tarot Muka. So it looks like this. It's a very glossy deck, so I'm not sure how forgiving it's going to be. I hope you guys can see it. If not, I'm sorry, but Seven of Cups, High Priestess, Ace of Swords. So yeah, it's a gorgeous deck. It's Rider-Waite-Smith style. So if I'm looking for kind of like a classic tarot experience, that's what I'm usually gonna go to. It's the only one that's not like a themed deck or anything like that. So that hopefully answers that. Next question here is from Star Lilica, which asks like what my preferred method for getting in like the tarot mood is. Like, do I use an altar cloth? Do I use incense, particular crystals? I'm a very casual reader. I don't have a whole lot of like pre-reading rituals. When I first got into tarot, I was actually horrible for like the whole pre-tarot ritual. I found tarot exhausting because I was actually experimenting with Wicca at the time when I first started getting into like everything occult. So Wicca is very big on rituals and everything like that. So I was casting circles. I was doing a lot of things that I didn't need to do for a tarot reading. Now it's kind of like a switch. I just kind of like, it's a shift in mindset for myself, so that's all I really need is to kind of put myself from like civilian to, I'm gonna read cards intuitively now and connect to the energies that I need to connect with. So that's kind of my thing. That's what I do. Of course, I'm gonna light candles. When I'm reading, I do appreciate Nag Champa incense. I've experimented with a lot of different incense. Nag Champa does kind of have that kind of like the scent and like the vibe that I like when I'm reading. Other than that, my altar is full of different crystals that have different things. I don't have any of them for a particular reason other than like their individual attributes. So those are there, but otherwise just a clean surface and a shift of mindset. That's all I really need to get going. So hopefully that answers that. Jessie, my Scorpio love, she asked, Bene Gesserit, I think that's how you pronounce it. I think it's a name, so I'm not sure. You know where to find me if I'm wrong, like drastically wrong. What is my favorite card and what is my favorite spread? My favorite card is very easily the Queen of Pentacles. She's kind of one of those cards that's like, it's gonna be okay. She's comfort, like out of context, of course, but she's like definitely a card of comfort and stability, control, optimal like material circumstances, which is always really helpful when you're, living on your own, well, with somebody else. But it's just a good card to draw. So that's, yeah, so Queen of Pentacles. My favorite spread, well, I mean, I work with a lot. I make a lot of like intuitive spreads that are just like very on the fly that I literally never touch again. The ones that I offer in my shop, and like not as like a self-promotion or anything like that. I really like the Starborn Prophecy and the Witch's Pyre. Those ones are, they're also my most popular readings. So those ones are, I really enjoy those ones. Those ones are super empowering, and I always think that's what tarot should be. Is tarot should be empowering. It should be inspiring. You should be able. It should be really meaningful to you as a person. So those ones are really great. But yeah, other than that, I do a forecast spread or clairvoyance spread every day, or at least every week. I try to, depending on how busy I anticipate to be. So there's that. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. I'm trying to be like quick so that this doesn't get like boring, because I can get rambly, because Gemini and Mercury is a curse, and it's, yeah. So the next one's from Anonymous, and what card do I most resemble? That is a really tough one, because in a traditional deck, there's like so many different cards that you could resemble. So I kind of have a bit of an identity crisis when it comes to tarot. I don't always know who is gonna be, like, what's gonna be me, because I guess I would have to say the Tower, because I'm constantly evolving my practice. I'm constantly looking for like something else to engage myself in. I find that I go through a lot of transformation, and I'm like just constantly looking for more, looking for different things to validate this or that. So I would say like shaking foundations and rebuilding and stuff like that. Those are big themes for me in like this time bubble as I exist in like my immediate time frame here. But yeah, so the Tower is what I'd say I'd resemble. Oh yeah, Anon had asked a bit of a doozy here. It's a little bit larger, so I'm gonna just break it down and like answer it in the points that they're presented. So how what's the best way to start tarot? Should you be reading for others, or should you start with yourself first? That's part one of their question. And to answer that, I think that it's important to start with yourself first. I think that for a couple of reasons. I think first because you know yourself best, and you can contrast your behaviors, and if you can look at yourself objectively, you can look at your behaviors and contrast them against what the cards are telling you. And I think that was what was really helpful for me when I first started reading. I just dived in kind of haphazardly. So that was how I started to learn. I read for myself like constantly. I found spread after spread after spread on Tumblr, and I found that to be quite helpful in my own development, and that's what I base myself off of right now. So yeah, read for yourself first, and the second reason to that is that it's kind of like, it's a big deal if you don't know you don't really understand what you're doing, and you're going to read for other people. That could pose a problem, just because, and people have a like uncanny regard for like the occult and like divination and stuff like that. Like, they believe it, but they don't, depending on who you're talking to, obviously. But like the general populace is going to tell you like they're intrigued by it, and they're like scared by it. So if you're reading for like, say, like, you know, your friend from school, who you're like, hey, I just got into tarot, I want a reading, and like you pull like the Devil, the Tower, and Death or something like that, they're gonna freak them out because you don't necessarily know what you're talking about yet, and they're gonna see that as like an omen of doom. I just think that can get irresponsible, and I think it would do you well to know what you're talking about at least a little bit, and have a little bit of research behind you before you start reading for other people, because what you say to people can affect them. Things stick with people. Even minor things like, oh, you're gonna break up with so and so. Oh, this card means that you're gonna be unhappy. So they're gonna like think about that for a while. Like that's just kind of like depending on the reading, of course, or like you can give people false hope, like, oh, I think this card means they're gonna win the lottery, so they're gonna like spend a lot of money on lottery tickets. Maybe. Like again, it depends on who you're talking to and how they take it. But it's always just best to like, you know, be very cautious about like what you say to people, especially when you're first starting out. So I would say yes, start with reading for yourself first, and then when you are comfortable and feel that you have a grasp on your cards, read for other people. The second part of that question was, do you need to know all the cards before you start? And by start, I assume this person means, I assume that they mean like before they like even pick up the cards and do a reading. That's kind of how I'm feeling it. And I didn't know any of the card meanings when I did my first reading. My first reading was very, very intense and very personal, and was a lot heavier than it needed to be. So I didn't know any of the card meanings. I took an interest in tarot. I did a couple of readings with a little white book, and I moved on from there. So, no, you don't need to know the meanings right off the bat. I think that before you start like selling readings, or you start moving into doing readings for other people, or donation readings even, I think it would be a good idea to, have a grasp on your cards, because I mean, you're asking, like, at that point, you might be asking people for like money for something that you don't know quite well yet. So, again, yeah, like, give out free readings or whatever until you're comfortable with it, just to help you practice reading on other people. But I do think it's a good idea to, yeah, you don't need to know them like when you're first starting out, but I would make an effort to, depending on what deck you're using. The last part of your question was, do you have any particular path suggestions for beginners? And I get a lot of beginner questions. I guess it's just kind of the nature of everything for every, yeah. Anyways, I don't have, like myself, I just dived in. Like I bought a Juliet Shaman Burke deck from Urban Outfitters when I was 19, and I dived right in that night. Like I found the spread, I did the reading, I cried, it was crazy, and I evolved from there. So, I just used a little white book. I mean, I spent a lot of time on Tumblr, of course. When I first started out, I really liked, and I, like, just for, like, legal disclaimers, the people I'm about to mention, I'm, like, no way affiliated with them. They don't endorse my blog or, like, my store or anything like that. I'm in no way affiliated with them, but I really liked Biddy Tarot when I was starting out. She was really, really awesome. She's good for a little bit more in-depth meetings. She elaborates on the cards a little bit more than the other blog that I'm going to suggest. Well, it's not a blog, but the other website I'm going to suggest is learntarot.com. They've broken it down very point form with the cards, and they're great when you're first starting out. I think that they're a great place to start. I would start with them. I did my 78-day tarot challenge through them. Like, I looked at their meanings and contrasted them against how I felt about the cards, and I did it from there. So, learntarot.com, Biddy Tarot, I like, other suggestions would be just get a deck you like. A lot of people start out with a Rider-Waite-Smith. That's awesome. That's what the majority of the material that isn't attached to a specific deck is written about in tarot. Like, it's all a lot of work centers around the Rider-Waite-Smith. So it might be a good idea to look at that, but you don't have to. I did, and I really didn't like the art, and I've heard that from a lot of diviners, is that they start with a Rider-Waite, because that's kind of like what everybody knows, right? So they start off with that, and then they end up like, I really hate the colors in this deck. It's very primary, it's very, like, very basic, And that's why I really like the Tarot Muka, because it takes the Rider-Waite's theme, which is still what everybody's writing about. So I had a lot of access to content on this deck's theme, because it very much follows the Rider-Waite-Smith. But like don't try to learn tarot with something that you don't like. You're just gonna get impatient with it. You're gonna want to like burn through everything. You're not gonna actually retain anything with it because you're not gonna like it. Like it's gonna become homework. It's not gonna become a learning or a growth or development experience for you. So get a deck that you like. But yeah, other than that, just dive in. Do you get comfortable, and other than that, I don't really have a whole lot of advice because I entered the tarot world very haphazardly, and I'm very comfortable where I am today. I'm very confident. So I mean, if I can jump in and, you know, just go at it and then come out of it with the level of like clarity and confidence that I have now, and I I think that that's a safe bet that you should be okay if you do something similar. I'm sure that there's other diviners will tell you different methods, but for myself, I just say go for it. So yeah, so that's everything. There was more related to this video, but it was more about witchcraft, and that's a different video for a different day. I wanted to keep this one about tarot, so I am open to doing that, but that's it. That's all I got. This is it. So thanks again for listening and watching, tuning in, if you will. But I'm gonna call it a wrap. And again, I'm Hound with Howling Oracle, and take care, everyone.